Hey makers, welcome back to Middle to Made. I recently did an Ask Me Anything on my Instagram, and I figured I'd answer some of those questions here. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Middle to Made is all about 3D printing and firearms and firearms accessories. If you're into that type of thing, subscribe and comment down below. I try to engage with the community as much as possible, so you'll likely get a reply. The first question I would like to answer is about 3D printing a belt-fed upper and links. I do think it's possible to do so, however, it's probably not something that I would look into. Links specifically, I think, are going to be a really hard thing to master with anything larger than maybe 22, specifically just because of the pressures that they're going to have. Maybe if you're printing all of your links in nylon, but even then you're using a very expensive filament for something that's just going to break. Not a good investment to me. If I were to do it, I'd want to see something really crazy like a bullpup belt fed or something like that. Another thing that makes it hard is the ATF's kind of position on open belt or open bolt weapons. Newly manufactured open bolt weapons, to my understanding, are essentially considered machine guns. Just like having the third hole in an AR receiver, whether there's a sear in it or not, it's a machine gun. Is that right? No, it's really circular logic on there, but I believe that's the stance that they have on open bolts. So making a belt fed that's a closed bolt with printed links, it's a lot of really weird things that kind of have to just match up perfectly. The next one asks about any large scale projects that I have on my mind that I maybe can't do right now but could do in the future. There's a handful of them actually, but the one that comes to mind initially is a modular receiver that could fire however many calibers, so let's say 9, 45, 5.56, 7.62, 7.62 NATO. Basically, it's just one receiver that could house multiple different bolts, magazine types because of how the magazine well would attach to it, but something extremely modular. Unfortunately, that's going to require a ton of time to design and test, which I probably could have if I just really spread out some of that design time I have. But the larger problem with that, and what's holding me back from trying to go for that now, is machining. Right now, with all the crap going on in Ukraine and Russia, steel's stupidly expensive. All the other metals are going up too. The bolts themselves all need to be prototyped. So the 9mm one has to be tested specifically with 9mm, 45, 5.56, etc. So even if I get one just really dialed in, something might have to change for the whole project in order to accommodate another one. And that's a lot of machining and a lot of cost that right now, with the cost of metal, probably isn't going to happen for quite some time. One of the guys wants to know about the 9mm Super Popper. I believe he's talking about the Pill Popper and Pill Pusher series that I pushed out. The Pill Pusher was the 9mm linear compensator that I did promise that I would make a longer form of for those that are in areas that can use suppressors or SOTs. That said, after I'm done with this current cream filling project, I'll probably move on to that one where I'll have a series of 9mm, maybe 45 even, suppressors, along with like varying lengths and girths. And also probably do like a series of AR-15 grips. There's a lot of really great ones out there now by some of my colleagues. I'd really like to see a few like PDW style ones, like more vertical, that I could use myself, that have my kind of aesthetic and kind of edgy chamfered look to. So I'll probably put out a whole series of those for like really vertical and all the way up to less vertical, maybe even an adjustable one. We'll see what I can kind of come up with on that. The next guy's asking for a mac and cheese. I believe that's a play on the words for the mac and cheese, looking for something a little bit more spicy. I probably won't do anything super spicy. Unfortunately, that will get me into some legal trouble. I'm very forward facing. You can see my face right now. So I try to keep everything that I do 100% legal. Whether I believe that I should have to do that, that's another story. And I don't think that you necessarily should or need to, but I'm never gonna advocate for breaking the law, and I'm not going to directly make something like a full auto trigger group that I wouldn't be able to test in my own situation extensively before putting out there. I do have an idea of maybe how to get a forced reset trigger to work with the AR-15 fire control group and a Mac 11 bolt, however. So if I can get that to work, it actually works in my head at least, it works different than how the rare breed ones and the Hoffman ones and wide open triggers, all the other ones. It's a little bit different than that. And actually, again, if it works in my head how it does, it'll reset on the forward momentum of the bolt. So we'll see, because I don't think that one will be an infringement or anything like that. So if I get a cease and desist letter, I'll send them a photo with my middle finger. But we'll see. Another guy's asking about a fanny pack style concealed carry for like the Mac Daddy, Mac and Cheese, Invader, something just super small and compact along those lines. I actually have a follower and supporter who's sending me a couple handgun parts for like Glock 19 and 26 and things like that. I'm gonna see what I can do with those. I have an idea for a small PDW style chassis. Maybe folding, we'll see if that's possible. I doubt it for my idea at least. But if this idea that's in my head works out, it'll be a really cool PDW that has a pretty recognizable footprint, and of course, I'll throw my spin on it. Someone actually asked for a mod for the Mac and Cheese to accept open bolt uppers. Well, unfortunately, the AR-15 fire control group isn't going to work with an open bolt system, and I don't have the time nor the incentive to do so. To be quite honest, with the whole open bolt ATF thing, I don't even want to get into testing or prototyping for that, because if I have those parts at home and let's say I do get a knock on the door and they come check out my stuff, I don't want to have, oh, you have parts that are considered machine guns and all this other stuff, and then there goes my wife, my daughter, my life, and everything like that. However, step files, I'll be releasing those pretty dang soon. If you can do it and you want to release it yourself, heck yeah, please do it. Just tag me in it and refer back to my files, so that way I can check out what you're doing, and I'll definitely share it. The next person's asking about what camera equipment I use. I use the Sony a7 III for my primary camera. I use the Rode Link for a wireless microphone system along with the Rode mics. I use a KNF variable ND with a polarizer or circular polarizer built in, so I can cut out reflections on glasses and car frame or car windows, building stuff like that. Anything reflective, circular polarizers are crazy because you can just remove the glare. It's nuts. I usually shoot in S-Log2, and just because it's an 8-bit camera, don't really have a use for S-Log3. And then for drone, what's really nice is for work, I get to use the DJI Mavic 3. It's not the Cine version, but honestly I don't need the Cine version. And then for my personal, I use the DJI Mavic Air 2. Someone's asking about my favorite adult beverages. Well, that's a fun one, and I'm from Wisconsin. I love to drink. However, I don't really like beer that much, so I'm going to break away from the lineage a little bit right there. My favorite is Jameson. Jameson with a splash of vanilla Coke. I'll take that any night. If I'm not in the mood for liquor, or maybe I have to wake up early the next day and I really want something to drink, I'll do something like the adult apple juice, like Angry Orchard or Reds or something along those lines. All those adult apple juice ones are fantastic. But in general, Jameson or any whiskey with just a splash of Coke or something like that, that's right up my alley. Being from Wisconsin, I'll always take a brandy old fashioned. Those also hit the spot. The next one's asking about how many rounds I've put through the Mac and Cheese. Personally, I've only done around 500, so I don't have a huge round count on mine, but I also am getting over this really crazy weather here. I'm actually in a jacket, not in a coat. Fingers are a little cold right now, but they're not too bad. Winters here in Wisconsin can get pretty nasty. We're either in the negatives or in the negatives with wind chill. This year actually wasn't too bad, but I'm getting kind of a wuss as I grow older. That said, I do have a couple guys that have reported back to me that they're over 1,000 already, and those are with PLA Plus. One of them actually, I do believe, is using a carbon fiber nylon, but the other one I know is using eSun PLA Plus. With the alleged quality control issues right now with eSun, maybe do some testing on your own before you create one of mine with that. Just make sure that whatever roll you're using is strong and ready to handle the impact of a high recoiling system like the Mac 11. Another question is asking the print orientation of the Sauerkraut. Any of my files should come with a JPEG of a suggested print orientation along with a README file. If you're getting my files anywhere and it doesn't come with that, make sure that it's from my page and it's not from like some random catalog that just aggregates files. If you have it on those, send me a link and I will either contact the people directly to either have that taken down or updated. I want my files to be out there and I want them to be free for everyone, which is why all my files make it to Odyssey eventually. But I don't want my files in beta stages or in unfinished stages, especially without proper instructions, to be out there and possibly get anyone hurt if it's a test file and it's supposed to have a huge warning, not ready for actual use or anything like that. There was one project that released early. Actually, the mac and cheese was one of them too. So the mac and cheese had an alpha that was just for testing and feedback, and it had a disclaimer, hey, this might not survive a few rounds, and that person put that very first file up on DefCAD and was getting compensation for it. Another question is asking about 3D printed mortar shells. As laughable as it is, and it is pretty funny, I have been thinking about that actually. I need to look into the legalities and see if it's like a 37 mil where it can be used for, or used as a signaling device. If so, I very well might go into that project here sometime this year. Probably not right away, but I do have some pretty cool ideas for that. I actually had a few recipes for 37 millimeter from back in the day when I used to use smoke. And I also had like an airburst marking, so you could say I'm over here or anything like that, or look over there. But I'm not sure on the legalities just yet because I haven't done the research. And I don't know what weight it can carry in order to actually send the payload a acceptable distance. The last question I'll answer today is about the pill popper. Someone's asking about the highest round count that I've seen for that or how many I've done. Well, unfortunately, like I said earlier, I'm very forward facing, so I try to keep everything legal. The only versions of the suppressors I design that I print are the cutaways. I don't want anything to do with the actual versions. Again, I value my family and I value my life. That said, I have seen evidence of a 22 full auto handgun firing 6 different bursts through the device. And the only damage to it was the first baffle was becoming deformed. Surprisingly, everything else survived. It was probably nearing its limit at that point though. That said, that same device has seen over 800 rounds just in total. And then other people have said that they're over 1,200, 1,800, and somewhere in there. I really think that clover spinning in the blast chamber really helps kind of, one, tighten down everything, and then 2, get the expanding gases to flow through the flow ports on the first baffle. So if you're in an area where you can print those legally or you're an SOT, check out the Pill Popper version 1.5. If you've made it this far, you clearly like firearms content and 3D printing. Please subscribe and welcome to the community. Like I said, I like to communicate with the community. Comment down below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you're one of my supporters on Buy Me a Coffee, thank you. You are what make this possible. I wouldn't be able to do all these designs and purchase filament and test all this new stuff without your help. So thank you for being a part of my community, and it's a pleasure to have you as my beta and alpha testers. Thanks for your support, everybody. You can't stop the signal, and I'll see you next time.